Hello and good afternoon, everyone. I am delighted to extend a very warm welcome to you all to this webinar organized by the Geomatics Engineering Society on the special occasion of GIS Week 2023. I, Sudipta Paudil, the third year student of Geomatics Engineering at Kathmandu University and the General Secretary of Geomatic Engineering Society, am honored to be your moderator for today's session. Thank you all for joining. Dear all, the theme Mapping the Future Application of GIS in Achieving Sustainable Development Goals reflects crucial role geomatics engineering plays in shaping a sustainable tomorrow. So, uh, again, thank you all for joining. Here today, we are truly fortunate to have two distinguished keynote speakers who will be sharing their knowledge, experience, and expertise with us. Let me take a moment to introduce them. Firstly, we have Mr. Vibhu Sinhar, a seasoned GIS expert who holds an impressive background, including a master in GIS and remote sensing from Symbiosis International University. His experience as a senior manager at ISRO India and his role in other leading geospatial organizations make him a true authority in the field. Moving to our next speaker, GIS expert Mr. Pawan Muddu Sir, a skilled GIS engineer and a digital cartographer holding an MSc in IGN from the University of Twente. His diverse experience from freelance writing for Sirio to being a senior GIS executive and online faculty on Great Foundation brings a unique perspective to the intersection of geography and technology. We are truly fortunate to have you both here. Throughout the session, we are going to explore the application of GIS in achieving sustainable development goals, a burning topic that is not only relevant but also critical in today's world. Truly, me, myself, am so excited for what's coming from them. So, before diving into the session, I would like to request our head of department, Dr. Resma Shrestha ma'am, to have her opening remarks.
First of all, I would like to congratulate GES for successfully organizing this wonderful event. And particularly, I would like to thank you, the distinguished speaker of this session, Mr. Pawan Muddu and Vibhu Sinha. So I'm very thankful for accepting this invitation and contributing in this session. I'm very excited to know one of the speaker is also from University of Twente, Netherlands. And when I saw this profile and also from ISRI, I'm so excited. Actually, I haven't seen your I'm not seeing your video camera, but yes.
Think you can see me now?
No. Actually,
Oh, one second.
Yeah, Vibhu. Hello, and Pawan Muddu.
Yeah. Now you can see me, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Hello,
yeah.
Ms. Reshma. It's an honor to be here as a speaker. Thank you, ma'am. Yeah.
Yes, I'm very thankful to both of you for accepting these invitations. And also, like in the University of Twente, I think I have already spent almost 10 years there. But I wonder if I haven't seen you in any corridor of that ITC.
When was that, ma'am? Could you?
From 2007 to 2009, I did my MSc.
Yeah. Okay.
Then from 2012 to almost 2019, I completed my PhD under the
Okay.
Yap
Well, I was there from 18 to 19 out there. Yeah. And
Okay.
I'm now currently pursuing a program called IGON from two universities, Lund as well as uh, ITC. Yeah. So it's
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was wondering when I saw your
file.
background as well, and also like from Vibhuji from Sri. So I'm very thankful for your wonderful session you are delivering to our students, basically application of GIS, Geographic Information System as such, in achieving a very important global agenda of sustainable development goals. This is very important. I think yeah, your contribution, your presentation, your knowledge, your experience will be the eye-opening path for our students to apply this GIS in various domain, various applications. So without taking much more time, I'm very thankful again for your this acceptance of this invitation. So now maybe I would like to have again short remarks here. Now I'm still in the Kathmandu University, Dhulikhel. I'm traveling back to Kathmandu. So in the midway, if I'm out of the session, if I'm not available in the closing session, I would apologize in the beginning, but I will be online. Thank you.
That should be all right now.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for your words. So now, without further ado, I would like to invite our first keynote speaker, Mr. Vibhu Sinha, sir. Sorry, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
From is yours, sir.
So it's all up to me now, I guess. And thank you for joining in, all of you. Thank you, Reshma ma'am. Thank you, Kathmandu University for having me here. It's an absolute pleasure and a great honor to be, here with you. And this week has been especially remarkable because we have been celebrating events as a precursor and follow-on events after GIS Day. And probably few of you already know that S3 also celebrates its Foundation Day, in this week. So it has been a very special week. It's been, it has been full of activities in and around here at S3 India, at S3 Global, and with lots of our partners, lots of our partner universities. We have been talking about GIS all this week. So first of all, kudos on choosing sustainability as the theme for today's session. S3 as an organization has been spearheading all the efforts which we can on the sustainability part of it. We understand how much role does it play. So in fact, this year at user conference, so here is a quick question. Raise hands if you can. Were you able to see this year's S3 user conference? Any one of you? I know it's a difficult question. Okay, so Pawan has seen this. So great. So in that, the theme for the conference was GIS creating the world you would want to see. So it was all about sustainability, right? So when I received this invite, I quickly thought of why not take that message from Jack himself to all of you. So I quickly reached out to our global teams and I borrowed the slide deck which Jack Benjamin presented. So without wasting any more time, I'll share that slide deck with you so that we understand or we share what S3 thinks about sustainability and a sustainable way of living using GIS, and how geography and GIS contribute. In fact, how they lead the way all through, right? So give me a minute while I upload my slides. Let me know when you are able to see all the see the screen.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
So this is all about the vision, like how GIS is creating the world you want to see. So this was the theme for this year's user conference. And the first thing which comes to our mind is, what kind of world do you want to see? So just take a couple of minutes, if you want to, and come up with some words. I'm monitoring the conversation on my mobile device as well, so probably I would be able to see the responses. Uh, so when we talk about uh, the kind of word you want to see, a lot of words come to our mind. So probably some of us will say prosperous, some of us will say I want to see a world which is full of greenery around us. I want to live in tandem with nature all through, right? So we went ahead, we got some of those words out here, and this is what came out. So some of us prosperous, we are looking for an equitable world. What is equitable? So we have always been, equitable and equity has always been confused between the. We have always been confused between these two words. Then secure, right? And then sustainable. Ultimately, and when we come off the age, we do realize that our resources are limited, right? So when we move ahead, we see that our world, it is a fairly complex and highly interdependent ecosystem, right? And if you look at the current geographic scenarios, we see it happening all around us, right? If it uh, if it rains heavily in the highlands, we are going to have a flooded catchment area, right? Obvious, and that is going to impact our crops. And probably later down the line, in a couple of years, we're going to see lots of soil runoff impacting the agriculture all in all. So it's all very interdependent, each and everything. People migrate from one place to another because probably the water sources have, they're simply compromised, they have vanished, or probably you're not getting good enough produce from your agriculture. So people keep on migrating. So, and in geological time scale, I mean, this is a very rapid change which we are seeing in this current century. We have, the last century and the current one, we have impacted, the ecology, ecosystems around us. We have been doing that, and we will play a major role in how it shapes up in a couple of years, right? So it's our world. We have to take care of this. We have to do something about this. And uh, as a species, we have been very successful. We are the only, I would say, intelligent species out there. I mean, uh, who have been able to create things, right? We have intelligent species out there. I mean, we do count other uh, apes, dolphins, all those are intelligent species, but have they created something as big as cities, as complex as agriculture in 3 seasons? Uh, we have been able to create transportation networks. Industrialization was brought in like 6 or 7 centuries back, and we never looked back after that. We have changed the way we educate our uh, young generations. We have harnessed energy in ways uh, none of our predecessors or no other species was able to. And because we have made it so comfortable for all of us, we have seen a steep incline in our population. So till 1700s, 1800s, this the the population growth was fairly steady. But if you look at the graph now, it shoots up like anything, right? And Southeast Asia, we have played a major role in helping this graph reach there. So we are advancing and evolving civilization, and as few of the anthropologists would like to say, or few of the scientists would like to say, that we have created the age of the Anthropocene. But while doing so, we also brought in lots of challenges by these human activities. Some of these are listed here. Ecological instability, right? So I am connected to you from the city of Delhi, and we have seen floods across the deserts of Rajasthan. So Rajasthan is one of the deserted area. The Thar Desert occupies the most of the land mass in Rajasthan. We have seen floods there, right? We are seeing, chilly winters across the Indian plains. We are seeing Canada running off to, ponds and lakes and installing air conditioners because they were suffering from heat waves. We have seen that. We have all heard of that in the news, right? And we have seen lots of social conflicts. As we speak, there are a couple of them going on. Steep decline in biodiversity. So these have been the catchphrases in most of the, I would say, scientific fraternities when they discuss the next big challenge to take upon. So these are the words which come up. Overpopulation is one of them. Oceans are warming, and they're warming at a very, very fast pace. So how many of you know that there is another storm forming in the Bay of Bengal, Cyclone Mithila, I believe, right? So not the season when you would expect a cyclone to be forming. So not unusual, but a rare occurrence, right? So all these things are happening. So what we have seen is that as a result of our rapid industrialization, our hunger for resources, because we are unable to distribute our resources equitably, we have seen lots of these problem statements coming in. These are the challenges which we are facing these days. Unconstrained development. So if you look at any country or any state, you would see that they have some very dense urban growth centers, and then your rural population remains unaware, or they are devoid of the development which the urban centers have seen, right? So there is a plateau. At the top of the plateau, you have your urban centers, and at the bottom of it, you have your rural areas, which have not seen much growth. And those urban centers, so again, pointing out to Delhi, we have an air quality indicator hovering at 400, 450, one of the most polluted city globally. And in Delhi, or National Capital Region in India, as we say, it has approximately 3 crore population living across a narrow patch of land, right? So pollution was bound to be a problem, and we are already seeing the impact of it. So greenhouse gas emissions and carbon sinks, if you would see that South Asia and Southeast Asia, they have been contributing to the maximum amount of greenhouse gas emission, and then the industrialized nations, obviously. So if you see, these are the spikes in terms of greenhouse emissions, and this is one of the way a geographer or a GIS student will represent a problem or a challenge which is being faced, right? So you get to see which are the areas where industrialization has taken a toll on overall ecology, and you might want to, probably take a proactive call and distribute these areas, or you might want to take some very rigorous measures to cut down on the pollutants which are being emitted, right? So this is what geographers do, and this is how we make some powerful statements about how our activities are impacting our ecology. And when some of us, when we look at these things, these maps, these representations, they say, no, what? Probably we are beyond redemption. We probably don't have a future. We are just going to, we are not going to win this war, or we are not going to win this race against ecological degradation, right? We may not have a future, as some say. But I think the reality is not that grim. We still have a chance. We have a choice, right? So but to do that, we need to make our cities sustainable. We need to ensure that we save our wildlands. We need to ensure that whatever we do it more efficiently, and we need to sincerely cut down on pollution which we are emitting or which we are producing. Now, probably some of you might have heard, we have been talking about reuse, recycle. But I think one thing which has taken the center stage in this messaging is that reduce. We need to reduce our consumption. We need to scale back on our consumption. So while reuse and recycle was there for a couple of decades now, once we started recognizing where we are heading, we always were saying that this package which you are getting, it is reusable or this is recyclable. But now governments, civil groups, civil societies, they have started saying that recycle and reuse is fine, but what we sincerely believe is that we need to reduce what we consume. So can we take our commute in a public transport vehicle instead of going in our car all through? Probably we can share our resources better. We can do it more efficiently, right? We need to protect our biodiversity. Agriculture, while it has been very beneficial, it has taken its toll on biodiversity as well. So we need to plan our agricultural expenses properly. We need to ensure that our biodiversity is preserved. We have already lost, thousands of catalogued species which are considered extinct or endangered. So we need to see what we can do about that. Probably they were playing a part in the overall ecosystem, which helped, keeping the balance alive. Some of those species, they are not there anymore. So that is a concern, and that is something which we need to work upon. But I believe the important part is that we need to act now. We need to get these things, done as fast as we can. We need to find the efficient modes of commute, efficient mode of living. We need to cut down our expenditures, consumptions, and overall make our living sustainable. So how does a geographer do that? Whatever we have discussed so far, probably you would have realized, and you probably already know about it, that each and everything is a part of it has a location context to it. A geographer would be able to put that problem onto a map, right? So if it is a social problem, if it is an environmental issue, or if it's something which is economic, we would be able to see these kind of patterns out there. So from social point of view, the factors are health and welfare, demographic, population, education, equity and equality. So when we talk about health and welfare, probably some of you might want to, give into a conspiracy theory that COVID-19 was something which was, which came into fore because of, I would say, ecological imbalance. And then we had a news that there were certain, pathogens which were long frozen in Siberian permafrost. They have started appearing back because permafrost are, they are not frozen. So those pathogens are coming to life again, right? So our ecological imbalances are impacting our health and welfare. So we need, so GIS helps us understand all these fundamental factors, be it your climate, be it your water reserves, your water resources, right? So all those things are part of our environmental factors, and similarly economics. So this is the part which we believe that it has impacted our ecology, our climate, uh, our sustainability indices the most. So we need to keep a check on this as well. But for that, we need to understand where our industries are, which are the industries which are mostly polluting. Infrastructure which we are developing, can we do without it, or can we do it more sustainably? So all those questions can be answered by means of having all those things on your maps. So what is the geographic approach which you would take? First thing, as I said, we need to bring all those factors, all those problem statements on a map. So mapping is, what is the problem and what can be the solution. That should be your mapping criteria. It has to be collaborative. It has to be integrated. So all the data should come onto a single platform. So if you look at most of the countries, they are setting up their, core GIS hubs. Sharing of data is the main thrust factor which everyone is talking about. So some of the countries are developing their citywide GIS hubs. Some of them have statewide, state GIS concepts, and some of the countries have gone on to develop their SDIs, spatial data infrastructures, right? So idea is whatever data is there, it should come onto a single platform so that you could actually do a broad level analysis and understand where the issue is. So to solving a problem, the biggest hurdle is we need to understand the problem first, right? And we can understand only if we get a holistic view of the complete scenario. And that is not happening unless you get all the factors, all the actors of a situation on a single page. And that is what GIS helps you in. So how do you do that? You go about a data collection exercise. You try and get all the data, put it on a map, visualize it, map it to your heart's content, put in the best cartography. Probably Pawan will have a very nice session on cartography. He might have something to talk about cartographic impact of
Yes.
how you bring the most impact out of your data. Very important part of GIS and representation all through, right? And once you have seen it, you put all that plethora of data into analysis and modeling. So you model. You can't keep on doing same thing forever. So you create a model which you can run through for various situations, and it will give you a result so that your turnaround time is minimal. And basis the results of those analysis, you plan and you geo-design, right? So it all in all, these activities help you in a very prudent decision making, and helps in taking a very positive action, which is uh, synchronous with our sense of well-being, right? It helps you explore various alternatives. So typical, alternative in GIS is something, it has been the crux of having a GIS. So you want to go from point A to point B. You run a routing algorithm, it will give you point A, option A, option B, option C. You can tune it to having the shortest time, having the shortest distance. So explore those alternatives. That was a very naive example, but I was just trying to get the message across. Once you have the problem statement there, and you start analyzing it, you will get various alternatives. And then as someone who has a very good understanding of the situation and the objective which you want to achieve, you will be able to pick the best possible alternative. That is what GIS enables you to do. So this is something which you have been seeing as part of your course curriculum as well, but I thought I'll talk about what are the new things in GIS which are coming up, which are the which everyone seems to be talking about, right? So no one talks about SDIs anymore. SDIs is now a decade old, right? Now they say we have the data. How best can you help us visualize that data, right? So interactive data-driven map. You bring your data, and it will give you various cartographic representations on top of this, right? So you could see hex bins, you could see cluster maps, you could do heat maps. So heat map, very interesting analogy. No, so to population which was non-GIS aware or those who did not understand the statistics, heat map became a very popular word after or during the COVID days. Everyone was looking at COVID hotspots, right? Do you remember that? Do you remember those days? I know it. Those were painful days, lockdown and the constant fear of getting infected, the constant, inpour of news which was not really pleasant to hear, right? But heat map was something which became a common terminology all through. So those were the impact of GIS. Using GIS, governments were trying to establish quarantines. They were implementing geofencing, right? And then 3D and real-time GIS. So this is something which is coming up very fast. I'll talk about 3D and real-time GIS in a while as well. Real-time GIS has actually helped us capturing the weather information and pollution information at a pretty good frequency. Now we are able to see, I'll again talk about Delhi, that is where I live. So we are getting like 4 updates in an hour on the pollution level. And there was some rainfall about 10 days back in Delhi. And we would actually see level of pollution plummeting down. So we were sitting somewhere at the AQI of 500, and within a span of 3 hours, I believe, it came down to a very comfortable 70. I mean, we could not believe that we are seeing 70 AQI in Delhi during winter days. It's a rare occurrence, but we could actually see the pollution markers going down. So that was real-time GIS. We could actually see that which parts of the Delhi are getting rain, which parts of the Delhi are, the pollution is going down because of the rain. So all those things you could see in real time, right? Pervasive web and mobile app. So one app which some of our customers have developed for, again, related to pollution. A lot of emphasis is being put upon paddy crop stubble burning, right? So we understand what paddy crop stubble burning is. So in some of the paddy crop dominant areas, what we do is you cut the paddy, you take the crop out, and then you simply burn the residues. Those are called paddy stubble. And it is assumed that lots of pollutants in northern and central India are generated because of that stubble burning. So some of our customers or some of our users, they created a quick app wherein government officials and NGOs, they would take those mobile apps, they would capture those images along with the location credentials of the place where paddy stubble is being burned. So that activity has been banned. It is unlawful to do it anymore. But the area is so vast that it was simply untenable for law enforcement agencies to go everywhere and identify the culprits or identify where it is happening. So that is where power of crowdsourcing came in. So these apps have become pervasive, the mobile apps and everyone. So most of the people have smartphones now, and they were enabled with these apps. Wherever they would see a stubble burning happening, they would simply click a picture and send it across, right? So that law enforcement was able to take a quick action on that, and then reporting and storytelling. So we have seen that. I think best part of reporting was some of the dashboards which we have seen, right? So it could be related to the weather, it could be related to any of the natural calamity which might be happening. So we have been doing that using GIS. So GIS has changed the way we interact with each other, the way we interact with businesses, or the way we interact with governments, right? We have seen all that happening across our lives. So if I talk about businesses, so probably uh, now you can hail a cab using a mobile app which has a map interface, and a quick backend analysis helps you identify the nearest cab and you can hail it, right? With governments, you are able to uh, push your grievances or push your feedback to the government along with location and imagery. So all that has been happening, and GIS has empowered all those changes. For most of the cities or for most of the areas where we are trying to change something, capability of creating digital twins has changed the way we do our things. So let's say you want to expand a urban center, but you can't really visualize how it would look after it has come out, right? So that is where geo design idea comes in. So you are able to create your future city in a virtual digital twin world, and you can see how it will interact with the rest of the uh, aspects. So what kind of demographic it will harbor, what kind of industries might want to come into this area, what kind of water resource it might be dependent upon, right? So all those things, they have become available via the means of digital twins, and that is how you have a foundation for smart cities being set up. So what is the idea of smart cities? So smart cities, in the simplest of its terms, they are driven via information coming in from various sensors. You have near real-time responses to those, you know, to those impetus which you are getting from the sensors, and you try and develop a city or a way of life which is sustainable, uh, wherein people do not have to really, toil for travel. Their work of place, their work of living is nearby, right? You don't have to travel 40 kilometers to attend your office. So all those things. So those are the urban problems, and the smart cities are trying to solve that. But to solve that, you need to understand your cities better, and you need to understand them in the language of a digital twin, so that you know what is where. I just talked about GIS apps becoming pervasive. So these are some of the apps which we have seen. And the way things stand now, you can almost see each and everything on a mobile browser or a laptop browser as well. So right from story maps to instant apps. Uh, so WebGIS was a very niche field a couple of years back, but now it has been, I would say, democratized. Now everyone and anyone can work on WebGIS, right? Yeah, the complexities have increased manifold in the backend, but the front end has become very easy. So typically, when we talk about WebGIS or Enterprise GIS to any of our users or any of our partners, we always say that if you are someone who knows how to operate WhatsApp or how to operate your email account, you should be able to use GIS. That is how pervasive GIS has become, right? And by understanding that, we are able to interconnect our work which we are doing for which we might be doing for, let's say, our transport systems, our water systems. How do we distribute our resources better. So all that has become very cohesive. All the data is at one place, and then we are sharing services. So consider an example. You want to establish, or they're a part of Kathmandu city where you would be having a very old water distribution system, and you want to set up a new one. Now, when you go about working on that, you would see that you are facing problems in terms of, you don't have data available from roads, you don't have data available from, let's say, land parcel or, survey department, or you don't have NOCs coming in from your telecom providers. They also have dug the road to lay the fiber cable along the roads. So you need understanding of data from various departments. So what if all the data was available at a center, hosted server, and you just went there, you access all that data, you did your analysis that, to establish a new water distribution pipeline, these are the areas where I can lay a pipeline more efficiently without wasting much resources, without damaging the existing infrastructure. So that would be one way of doing something efficiently, if not sustainably, right? So if you are doing something efficient, it will eventually help in maintaining a sustainable way of life, and that is where distributed GIS helps your work. So these are some of the examples. So S3 has been working with United Nations to create sustainability reporting. So there are 17 goals which need to be mapped, right? These are called Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. We have been mapping and ranking countries, states, districts as per the SDG guidelines, how the governments in these particular areas are, how are they achieving these goals, and how do they rank vis-a-vis their peers, right? And we have been working with USGS, IGC for global sustainability planning and conservation planning. So quite a few initiatives where we have been working with various departments. If I talk about, these regions, so we have been working with UNDP, we have been working with ADB to ensure that all the SDG goals are being adhered to in all the projects. So can we, after all this talk, can we quickly come to a, not a conclusion, but can we agree to a point that GIS technology is already contributing to a more sustainable world? So we have been trying to plan our cities better. We are trying to, identify sites where renewable energy stations can be established. So you have fallow lands, why don't we establish a wind farm? Or, we have deserts, or we have, desert, wastelands. So why don't we go ahead and establish a solar farm, something like that? Habitat restoration. So this typically comes after in areas where there have been major mining activities, where major mining activities have taken up. So rehabilitation and habitat restoration is a part of that. So GIS has been the go-to tool for all these activities. One thing where GIS has further helped in optimizing of our resources is supply chain. So you know your customers better, or you know your beneficiaries better. So I'm talking in terms of public distribution systems. So now governments know where their beneficiaries are. A lot of work has been done to geotag the demographies which require that kind of support, or areas which require that kind of support, where public distribution systems need to be made more, I would say, effective. And a lot of PDS focus has been taken away from areas which are better off to serve areas which are more in need. So optimization has taken place, and GIS has helped a lot in understanding those scenarios. So we as GIS professionals have an important role to play. So you, me, Pawan out there, every one of us who understand GIS and geography and how it interacts with our environment, how it interacts with our, you know, ecology out there. So we need to start being more vocal about it. We need to understand, because we understand the situation we are in, and we can represent it the best way. We can actually show the people how things like pollution, how things like global warming, or unplanned industrialization, how it is impacting our our habitats, our way of living, how it has impacted our forests, how it is impacting our water resources. So we are probably the frontliners when it comes to it, in putting the problem statement across. And while we are doing it, we can also propose solutions. We can also work on the solutions and make our voices heard. So this is something which we have to do as GIS professionals, and this is what GIS stands for today. So in this GIS week, I think this is all I wanted to share. So as the theme was, creating the world you want to see requires GIS, the geographic approach, and you, the GIS professional. So this is all I had to share. I hope it made a bit of sense and you were able to understand what I was trying to say. But this is a very important messaging as far as sustainability is concerned. And I hope to see a lot of you working and honing your skills in this particular domain, in this particular area of GIS, right? So that is all from my side. Back to GC.
Thank you, sir, for delivering such a captivating presentation. Vibhu sir gave a very good example about how pollution have impacted in major rapidly growing cities like Delhi and even our Kathmandu city. And it was very fruitful to know how the integration of GIS contribute in addressing those challenges, fostering sustainable development goals. So thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Now, as we transition to our next keynote speaker, Mr. Pawan Muddu Sir, let's continue our exploration. Without taking any time, I would like to invite Pawan Muddu Sir. Sir, am I audible?
Yes, you are. Thank you. Yeah, if I can just share my screen and go ahead with it. Yeah. Yeah, ma'am. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
So I can begin, right? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So let me just give a prelude. So firstly, I thank Mr. Sinhar, sir, because I think what he said was very viable. But what he said was viable in terms of using sustainable development in GIS using proprietary software like Esri. And Esri has been a pioneer. There's no denial in that. But something which is very important also is the other part of application of it. So, which is open mapping or generating data through open maps or generating data through open source or open access maps. So what I want to highlight in my presentation is, firstly, we want to see how does open mapping contribute towards sustainable development, and what roles do organizations like ours play? Because I represent, or when I'm just introducing myself, I represent as an employee of an foundation that is now taking the concept of GIS into a totally different dimension of, one, giving education, two, of contributing to other sustainable development goals. So there are two dynamics here. One is how GIS can be used as a tool for application, but also how does certain organizations like us contribute towards ensuring that geospatial applications would be there within the SDGs that we have, right? So I like to make it interactive. And my first understanding is how people really see sustainability as, because I mean, we are living in a world where this whole concept of sustainability has become a euphoric debate. People are talking about climate change. There's a whole lot of gamut, but people also are talking economic development. So according to me, I think I look into it as a world where economic growth, promoting the environment, is what really contributes to sustainability, right? Because the nerve engine of a development of a society is obviously economic growth. Because if you get money into the kitty, things start to show up. It's not necessarily, it also talks about the will of the society to develop and all of that. But it is very important that we first get into economic growth. Then it comes under another very important fight, or another important collision of thought, and that is about environment. Because yes, I mean, Vibhu Sir talked about sustainability, but he also did say about industrial revolution. But has the world become better with industrial revolution? People will debate, so I'll let that to be debatable. So my view is that when you talk about sustainability, you talk about its environmental growth promoting environment, as you've seen out here. But then I'll leave the floor open. Yeah, so I have a Mentimeter quiz, and I would like to see what many people think. So I'll just put the Mentimeter link here, and I would like to actually see. So you just log into this, yeah, and I would like to see what you people really think what sustainability is, because now the goals are represented in a dogmatic manner. So understanding its dogmatic basis will determine how we can approach this, right? So until I wait for your opinion on this, if you're able to log in, you can give your responses. I'll check it out later. That's not an important issue. So we'll proceed with what are these goals first. So these goals are so basically promoted by United Nations, and they basically adhere to the most basic necessities. And we are living in the 21st century, and still it is very sad to see a world where this is still there, poverty, where this is still there. This is awful, where clean water and sanitation isn't present. And there are parts of the world which are really not accessible to drinking water, safe drinking water, right? Health, well-being, quality education, gender equality, so much of these are there. And the goal, although, is to get all of these and to address these millennium challenges, and whether they are met or not, at least that's an attempt, right? So, I mean, there's a very good old saying that you can only succeed, but if you try. And United Nations has come out with these 17 to basically try, so that success, it may be inevitable, but it may take time. So they may be met, or they may not be met mostly by 2030. But nevertheless, it's a try, it's a direction, or it's a path in the right step, right? So how to visualize these goals? And if I come to this slide that I've first shared, GIS can first contribute in visualizing them. And if you want a visual tool, why not you use SV story maps, and we'll visualize this one by one. So I'll just put the link here where you can see the sustainable development goals step by step. Yeah. Is my screen audible, ma'am? Is my screen presentable? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sure. So let's just go to these goals one by one. The first goal here is no poverty, right? And here you can see this ArcGIS dashboard, right? Now the data that is fit into the ArcGIS dashboard is basically the data of open access data, but it's using a proprietary software like S3. So the first challenge here is no poverty. And what you can see is the poverty gap. Now, Kyrgyzstan, for example, is 5.40, but you come into areas within Central Africa, and you see that we have a gap of 25.10% in Burundi, and in Cameroon it is 14%. So it's poverty gap at the national poverty lines, and you can see the poverty gap is 14% in some part of the world. So the understanding is that we have a world where we are living within $1 a day. So if a world is something like that, we need to visualize them, and these tools can help doing so. So that is the first thing you can see. Then coming to the next, and this is an awful reality of zero hunger, which is the sustainable development goal number 2. Now here we are talking about visualizing areas, right? As you can see in the legend, where the prevalence of nourishment and undernourishment is there. So if you look into this map, there is an awful reality which says that there is a prevalence of undernourishment from 31 to 54%, and that's predominantly also on the subcontinent, let alone countries like Ethiopia, let alone countries in Tanzania. If you come to our part of the world, which is the subcontinent, now I'm talking to a university in Kathmandu, and even Nepal has close to about 7.8% of undernourishment, as you can see out here. So why that is the case is that despite the employment, despite the potential of agriculture, it may be related to certain climatic events, or it may be because of the fact that the per capita income to access food is low. So that brings into the concept of food security. So this story map out here, this section of the story map is visualizing sustainability development goal number 2 using this dashboard out here, and it shows some grim realities within certain parts of the world. Nepal is 7.8, but India, which is now coming into the first world, also has 15.2 undernourishment areas. So it's a very, very grim reality. So our subcontinent is suffering, right? Despite the fact that we are making strides towards development. Now, again, I'll leave the policymakers, politicians to divide, but my goal as a GIS person is to visualize this, which I'm doing currently. We go to the goal number 3, health and well-being, and we see certain grim realities, like Afghanistan has a life expectancy of 60.5%, right? 65 age of life expectancy. So normally, if you really look into it, if you come to the Western world, the European world, their life expectancy is anywhere between 80 to 70 to 80s. And that is because of the fact that I think everybody has the basic divine law of is to live, right? And why not we live as much as we can and have a world, because there's only one life. So visualizing something like this is important. And if you come to the subcontinent, we are nowhere near the so-called first world. We use the term, I think, especially in European universities, global south, and global south is suffering, although I call it developing countries, and we can see certain grim realities. Afghanistan life expectancy is 60.5. That is worse. But if you come towards other parts, even Nepal you would say 69.2. So if you're living in the in the demographic age where you have low birth rates and low death rates, then the life expectancy should be a bit better. So in the democratic transition, our life expectancy should be more than 75, right? Senior citizens should live. So visualizing this becomes very important. India is 68. It's actually worse than Nepal. So this is another very important element. Goal number 4 is quality education, and that's where GRED Foundation helps, because I represent that I'm an employee of that organization, right? And you can see here that this is visualizing the parity within it. So if I click on, let's say, Pakistan, I can understand that the secondary school enrollment is 0.73, which is not so good, right? And if you come to areas like, let's just see, if you come to the Western world, like Netherlands, you can see that they have a very good, or Belgium, neighboring to Netherlands in the Benelux region, they have a very good enrollment rate of 1.13. So yeah, but again, in our part of the world, Nepal, it's good. At least people are educating themselves to the secondary school level. Yeah. So visualizing this also becomes important. I think we are going to do a lot of gender equality. Here we are talking about the access of access of women representatives in national politics, and it's pretty good in areas like Namibia. But if you come to the Western world, you can see that it's okay. But Nepal has an interesting statistic. It has 29 proportion of seats in political representation in national parliament is there. That can be better, because when you're talking about gender equality, especially now we are living in a world where equal pay for equal gender, right? For equal work, then why not we have equal representation too? So this sustainable development goal has been addressed to this part of the story map. Come further, this infuriates me a lot, because we are living in 21st century, ma'am. And if you're living in 21st century, you should have access to clean drinking water. But there are areas which don't. And our part of the world is lacking there. Come to Nepal, 90% has access, right? Still 10% doesn't. Come to India, 94. Okay. But if you come to Afghanistan, it's 55, which is awful, right? But let's not go into the politics. But let's just see whether people can at least drink water. And yeah. Sub-Saharan Africa world, it's very bad. It's still 58 and all that. So considering the terrain and all of that, and the climate of aridity, yeah, we have to consider a lot of those. But if you come to a country like Australia, which also has a lot of arid climate, you have at least 100% accessibility of water. Okay, they are now into the first world nation. They've always been, but they have a pretty arid climate, nevertheless, but still 100% here. So this graphic, or this part of the story map, tells you about accessibility of clean water and sanitation. We go to the next dynamic, and affordable and clean energy. And we are living in a world where we want to transition from fossil fuel to the clean energy. And what is more important is this world affordable, right? So I think one of the hallmarks of our Prime Minister Narendra Modi is to ensure that everyone in the villages have access to electricity, right? And this is one great initiative. In 2016 or 18, I think that initiative was accomplished. But if you see India's population, it's still lower. It's only 78% that have access to this, right? Which is a bad reality. Yeah, we don't want. We can have more. But you come to Afghanistan, it's only 43% that have that access. So yeah, that is a very important thing that we need to know. Sub-Saharan Africa has its issues, but if you come again to the first world countries, they have electricity access. You never see even a power outage may be only of say few hours. That's it. But our world still needs to come to that level. Yeah. Decent work and economic growth, and here we can see the unemployment, and what they have considered is the female and male unemployment. Okay, in the Islamic world, female unemployment is high, but let's just see where we in our part stand. Female unemployment is 4 and each 4%, which is okay, but it can be improved because everybody has the opportunity to get a good job and have a decent economic livelihood. Nepal is also very good. Unemployment rate is only at 3%, but it has to be maintained at that levels. If it increases further, then we do not like it. But again, the areas, there are places where it is Germany and other parts, and employment is high. But that depends on the economic trivialities of the nations which is considered, right? Then we can also visualize goals like industry and innovation, reducing inequalities, sustainable and cities and communities. I think Vibhu may talk better about it. Mr. Sinhar can talk better, and also certain consumptions, right? India's consumption of domestic material per capita is good, 4.7%. Then Afghanistan is a little bad, is worst, and when you come to these parts of the world, it's still worse. So this is where you can improve. So then, when all of this is understood, how much progress is being done, and if you come to this map here, I think it tells you what really is the situation. So if you look into the performance, India's performance is 63.4 when it comes to the scores, considering all the SDGs, right? When it comes to Nepal, it's 66%. So it's unthinkable that India is coming to the first world, but still it needs a lot of work on that area. But having said that, even Nepal has to catch up. We have to catch up to these countries out here. Like France, if you come to the Scandinavian countries, it's amazing, their performance. But even Germany, Netherlands and all are doing pretty good, right? United States is also okay. So we should aspire to come to this performance level. And if you see certain parameters, so certain parameters which we can work on. So if you see poverty, and if you see India's poverty and even our part of the world, significant challenges remain for poverty. How we can do that? Let's just come up with interesting GIS ideas. My focus is on education, because that's what GRED Foundation does. And if you come here, again, challenges remain, right? Challenges, significant challenges remain in your part of the world, in Nepal. But in our part of the world, challenges remain. In places like Pakistan, Afghanistan, major challenges remain. So, yeah. Water, major challenges, right? And if you come to, food security, major challenges. So, major challenges do remain. We can say challenges or major challenges remain. And this is what this graphic shows. So now the question remains, when you're talking about something about remaining, how we can help and how I can help with the foundation. So each one of you can do something or the other. And since I'm talking to a university which is giving GIS or facilitating GIS education, what can be done? So I talked about sustainability. Let's just see what we do as an organization and me as an individual. So GRED Foundation, which is located in Assam, which is in northeastern part of India, focuses on these three aspects: giving quality education, clean sanitation and water, and climate action, right? So it comes under SDG 4, 13 and 6. So when it comes to SDG 4, we provide GIS education. I think it's not a promotion that we are trying to do, but it's something that we want to help people in. So we are giving GIS education at affordable costs. That is what we are into. But we are also known to build partnerships between educational, governmental, and commercial technological establishments. These are the skills. So I myself train in proprietary training and open source and open access training. And these are the kind of training programs we have, including hydrology, OpenStreetMap, network analysis, and Sentinel Hub. So since our inception, we have reached about 3,000 colleges. We have 20 graduate programs, more than 30,000 to 50,000 hours of teaching, and we also place people in 10 to 20 prominent organizations. So this is our outreach, and I think the best way to do GIS, I think even ESRI has been doing it, and even we are doing it, is to do these capacity building programs. So webinars like this is the way to go. But more than that, I would also say that why don't we go into colleges and tell them the importance of spatial education. Let them just know how to map a building, small building in an OpenStreetMap. Let them know, now everybody's on mobiles, let them know how to access Google Maps. Even in India, even auto rickshaw drivers know. So awareness is one thing. Also developing skills will only come with awareness. And these things that we do within the Northeast, like this is in Gargaon College in Gargaon, which these are areas which are not in the mainframe. They are in the twilight. They are in the backwaters. But yet we are going there and doing it. Also certain colleges like these, right? Like premier colleges like USTM in Meghalaya and all of it we are doing. I'm also open to go to schools. I've been going to schools in Hyderabad like Bharati Vidya Bhavan, and also I'm dealing with GeoMap services in Hyderabad and teaching them certain spatial skills. This is what I aspire to do. Now, the next SDG goal is climate action, and here our emphasis on disaster management. Now, when we do that, two important elements come into play. One is monitoring, and the other one is mapping. So when we do all of this monitoring and mapping, we are basically considering the terrain or the region of Assam, which is a northeastern state within India. All of you will be familiar of it because Nepal is pretty close by. I live here in Telangana, but Assam is pretty closer to your part of the world. So one challenge here, first you have to identify a challenge. So I, as a faculty, identified one challenge is flood hazard, right? Because they have a long flood line area of Brahmaputra. And within the Brahmaputra basin, you can see that there's flood hazard is pretty eminent, right? And if you go near the flood basin, you get high, or in some cases, high flood hazard situations. So the first step is monitoring. So what I have cultivated is using real-time satellite images. I train people on that. So here, this is the Silchar floods in Assam. It has been a little controversial. People have been commenting about it. But nevertheless, this is an important issue that has to be visualized and addressed. And this happened recently in 2002. In the same year, there was another catastrophic floods in our neighboring Pakistan, right? And you can visualize these time lapses out here. So now I've also visualized certain other areas, like during this year, there was a major catastrophic floods in Moregaon, right? In 2023. So I've used Sentinel Hub time lapse. And what we see is, I've used shortwave infrared imagery and I've combined these images and created this time lapse. Now, using shortwave infrared imagery, I could see areas near the river basin, and part of the catchment areas which has been inundated, right? So you can clearly see that these are the areas that are inundated. So at least now you have triggered the alarm. That's the first important aspect. What you do after that, you have to plan. So these images do help. This is another one, and this was in 2017, and at that time we had Mr. Kiran Rijeju sir This photograph actually was taken by Mr. Kiran Rijiju sir, he is now a Parliament Affairs Ministry, but he was a great sports minister of India, and he is from this part of the world. So he took this image of the inundated area, and you can see 22 people sadly were diseased. So I don't like to talk about diseased people, but yeah, nevertheless, you see how grim realities it is. So again, what I did is I actually use Sentinel Hub to show where the inundated areas are. Now, this imagery is basically the synthetic aperture radar imagery, Sentinel-1 images, which is radar images. Why? For obvious reasons, these are areas which are basically cloud abundant areas. So to beat the cloud, we use radar imageries to show where the inundated areas are. So we use certain sprinkle radar images, and based on that, I could find these blue areas or dark black areas are the areas which has been inundated within Lakhimpur district, right? Which is another very important area. So yeah, so then then this is so along with that, we also can see certain other climatological parameters. Moisture is very important. So here this is created by one of our students who I trained. He's now in France. Great man, an IIT alumni. His name is Firdush. And what he did is, on what I made him do, or what we did together, is we actually forecasted where the moisture areas are low and high. Now, this is entirely a climatological issue where we are dealing with situations related to drought, right? So this well, Bagjan well in near the Brahmaputra basin, is basically visualizing an area where there is a lack of moisture, right? And that is seasons which are not flood related, but they are drought related, as you can see here. And this is in our part of the world again, in near Assam, or in Assam, sorry. So you can see moisture is pretty high. Moisture is very low, especially during the month of October. And this was in 2020, right? In the year 2020. So it started with low moisture throughout the winter months. You saw it was very low moisture, right? Or when the monsoon ended and the winter began, low moisture. So moisture stress is there. So now what we are doing is, what we can do. So what I have been doing is, we are doing something called as risk mapping. And here we are trying to first assess property damage. Now I'm going to use some other techniques, some certain AI techniques we are going to use. And we are going to check where the properties have been damaged. Then we also have, that will also relate with the number of human lives, and also ultimately bureaucratic agencies of the world have to deal with cost rehabilitation. So here we are talking about building types, right? And we have, when you do this kind of mapping, what we have to take into consideration. One is building type, one is number of floors, yeah, one is the building use, and one is the occupancy. So all of this has to be considered, right? It's not that only one or two. We have to take into consideration a lot when we are really mapping building footprints. And this is the open data that we are going to generate. I'll just demonstrate in 2 minutes how this is done through OpenStreetMap. Some of the other projects, again, for generating open data through OpenStreetMaps, was the project that GRED Foundation did. And we did it with Association of Asia Pacific Hub, right? And here we wanted to map the building footprints in a town called Narian in Kyrgyzstan. Why Kyrgyzstan is, you know, the climate there, it's basically extreme climates you get very cold climates and pretty hot climates also. But now the question is, how much these buildings are contributing to the climate increase, or the increase of temperatures, right? Which is a concept which is popularly called as urban heat island. So we map this down. So my job and their job is to create these building footprints. It's very simple, easy to do. Most of you should get into it. In fact, some of you have got into it. Some of the alumni have become stalwarts. And Ashok, of course, he's one of the best mappers of OSM now. In fact, he's got an award too. So yes, creating these footprints are important, right? As you can see out here. Then we also do certain food security related projects in Hasina aqua mapping. And this is to map ponds for aquaculture, for the purpose of aquaculture, as simple as that. More about this, I think we can talk in some other part or some other lectures. For now, this is another way that we can sustainably contribute in GIS. GRED Foundation also has been contributing towards SDG 6, where for the government of India, this is for the Jal Jeevan mission. And here it is for drinking water and sanitation, right? And here we are doing collecting secondary data. All of this has been done. And this is primarily being done with association of Jal Jeevan mission. So that we really create areas where we can access water. And it's a shame that we are living in the 21st century, but yet this remains a very important issue, accessing water, clean water too. And finally, we do gender, but this is not GIS related, but nevertheless, this is a charitable thing that all of us should do. Not technology, away from the computers, why don't we do this? And GRED Foundation has associated with Period Society, yeah. And here what we are trying to do is we are basically trying to educate on women's education, and we are trying to give women the right to speak up and educate themselves when it comes to certain women's health issues. Period Society, you probably understand what is it. So women's health issues are very important, and to be generally inclusive, first we have to give them the healthcare and all these other education and healthcare for them. So this is a nice initiative that we have contributed with them, with the Mission Shiksha, where we are just giving we are a small budgeted organization. So we're giving some projectors to these guys, and they did a great job in educating people about women's health. So this is some of the things that we have done. And if you have time, ma'am, if you have time, I just want to show you how we can do it on OpenStreetMap. A practical demonstration of 5 minutes, if you have time, or we don't. Yeah, if you're there, ma'am. Hello, ma'am. Yeah.
Yes,
So
sir,
I just want to show how this can be done on OpenStreetMap. How we can create data. 5 minutes. Do we have, or we don't have time?
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
Yeah, sure. So I'll just go ahead. So now I want to demonstrate how this can be done on OpenStreetMap. Yeah. So I talked about floods and climate change. So one project that we are doing is we are doing through OpenStreetMap. I'll tell you about the train. We have to do a separate training on OpenStreetMap, which I actually felicitate. In fact, some of your alumni are now the best mappers of it, right? And they are the pride actually of Kathmandu University. So, but my focus is in the area of Assam, right? And here we are mapping this building footprint. So we talked about a lot about generating this data. So how this data is generated using open access tools. OpenStreetMaps is the best to create that data, right? It is one of the best, and it's for humanitarian relief. So sustainability is also in conjunction with humanitarian relief. So we are mapping the footprints here. So here is a good example. I think I've shown you the example of one of the worst areas in Lakhimpur. So I'm using OpenStreetMap data. So what I'm doing is I'm going into this grid areas where we created certain tasks, which are shown in these tessellations here. So I'll click on one grid out here. And this which I'm using is ID editor, and the base imagery is again S3 world imagery, but you have a lot of number of imageries that you can be used. So I'm mapping a selected task, and in order to generate a building footprint, right, I'm looking into an area and I'm working in the selected grid boundary, right, which is shown in this purple patch. So now I'll zoom in to a resolution which is close to about, let's just say, 20 meters, or even more high resolution of 10 meters. I'll click on the area feature and I'll start generating my building footprint. So I'll click on the curvatures of the building. This is my day job, in fact, with many organizations that Grid Foundation is doing, right? And we are digitizing this area. Yeah. And since this is my life as a digital cartographer, yeah. And once I digitize this area, yeah. Yeah. So, or let me just check 1 second. Yeah. Or I'll just, yeah. So I'll just come and digitize this area first. Yeah. Because this is not a building here. I enter the information. So I'll square this building, right? And I'll enter the information out here. So any information, you can enter it. But it's important to create the building footprint. So another building, I will create out here. And once I created these building footprints, I can go along, square and go along. Once all of this is done, I can just come to this upload button. And all these hashtags are there. So it will be uploaded in the OSM database with the right tagging guidelines, which automatically be uploaded out here. And you upload this data. So that is the basic initial baby steps in creating this kind of data, because in most parts of the world, like these, we don't have footprints. Now we can also import certain artificial intelligence building footprints from many prominent companies like Google. Esri also is there, but Google is one of the pioneers. Bing and Meta now are also doing this. But nevertheless, you need human eye and human validation to map these areas, right? And why it is important is if you really come, zoom out, you can see that they're very close to the buildings. So if you really look into it, if I use a measuring tool, it's pretty close to the floodline areas, right? So this is one building out here, which needs to be mapped, right? And you can see it is so close. I use a measuring tool. And if I just draw a line, yeah, I can see that it's only 141.5.1 meter away from the existing channel water. So what happens if this is inundated? These buildings or these areas are exposed towards risk, right? And we did a lot of risk mapping exposure on S3 platform, on QGIS platforms, all of this. So exposure to risk again comes under important consideration. So geospatial data, yeah, so I'll just cancel this, I'm sorry. Yeah. So geospatial data, I'll just click no now because I think I can do this task in my free time. All of you can do this task, right? You can just check on the task that you have done and I can just put it on the chat. And we can have these OpenStreetMap sessions, right? So the important element, what I'm trying to say is geospatial data has a massive contribution, right? And I feel it's the leveler to get these goals. But in case it's not a leveler, I feel it can bridge at least. And other efforts, whether it's humanitarian efforts, whether it's economic development efforts, will come unless we get the bridge. And GIS is the bridge, right? And that's all I want to say. So let's just bridge using GIS technologies for a better and happier world. So that's it, guys. Thank you, Kathmandu University and the Geoinformatics Department for accepting my presentation. And more information of what we do as a foundation, I'll just share the link and you can get in touch with me. And these are the courses that we do. And certainly we'll be there to assist you when it comes to training and also these kind of mappings that we do. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Geoinformatics KU. It's an honor and humbly privileged to talk to you in this regard. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Pawan Sir, for insightful presentation. Your expertise in GIS engineering and digital cartography has truly expanded our understanding of future of mapping. So thank you so much. Moving forward in our webinar journey, we are excited to move into a brief question answer session. So, dear participants, feel free to type your question in the chat or QA box. We will do our best to address as many as possible. I guess let us address some pre-submitted questions that were received during presentation time. So the first question is from Gorakhnath Pandey. The question is, GIS has always been there before executing any project in most of the cases. What are the real scenarios for uses of GIS for established project which should or could be managed more efficiently? I guess this question goes to both the speakers.
That's all right. I think I'll take it up, and a good question, Pandeyji. Um, so this question has always been there: what is good to have, what is must have, and what could be avoided, right? So the question always comes. Mapping was always there, right? So Columbus went without any GIS, but he still had maps. So in AEC, architectural engineering and construction, that is the vertical which we understand for most of these projects or line projects or infra projects the way they are. So the real scenarios are in terms of appropriating the project plan. So for most of the countries these days, if you're planning any major infra project, it is very important to get environmental clearance, and it goes all the way up to the top in any of the country or any of the state you talk about. So GIS helps you understand your project. So suppose you're planning a pipeline, let's say oil pipeline, from a port town all the way up to your particular city. It could be any city, right? Now you have a line, that much you can map. That is something which was possible without GIS. But how would you get all the data about demography? What are the demographies which have to be moved away from that particular petroleum pipeline or a gas pipeline? Which are the ecologically sensitive spots which you have to avoid for that particular pipeline to pass through? And the environmental clearance authorities, this could be a ministry, this could be a department, they would like to see all that data well designed, well defined on a map, so that they can also understand what is it that we are proposing, right? So that is during the planning. And then during the execution, typically it would be contracted out to someone who is going to do it, as we call them EPC contractors. So these engineering, procurement, and construction contractors, they carry out the work. They map the work which is being done. They provide timely updates using photographs. Uh, those contractors are duty bound to upload the area which has been constructed using GIS. None of the projects in line departments like road, pipelines, right, any of the infra projects, uh, in almost all the projects and majority of the areas, a drone survey is mandatory these days, and that drone survey resultants are laid out on the plan. So you have a plan brief, and then you have a data set coming in from the contractor and the drone surveys, so you are able to see that your project is on track or not. So that is where GIS helps a lot. And another example in terms of construction is the idea of GeoBIM. So do we understand what a GeoBIM is, or do we understand what a BIM is?
I think I can just say it's called as building information model.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, that's
right.
what is. It's three-dimensional building. Yeah.
Right. So as Pawanji just talked about it, BIM is something which is mandatory for most of the large building projects which are coming up. It could be a airport terminal, it could be a large hospital, it could be a government housing building, right? So now consider a huge campus, something like Kathmandu University, is spread across acres of land. So while a building information management system will cater to, let's say, your department of geography or is it department of geomatics, right? So you have 1 or 2 buildings. So a BIM can accommodate that. But what happens when you have an area of 2 square kilometer or 2 kilometer by 2 kilometer, and you have multiple buildings in that? So you have BIM sitting on top of GIS. So you have multiple utility lines like water pipeline, gas pipeline going all through, electricity conduits. So GIS puts all the buildings in a location perspective, makes all the BIM data sets or the building data sets smarter. It helps us understand how utilities are being distributed, and it also helps us understand if your buildings are distributed equally, all the resources are being made available to all the buildings. In event of let's say any kind of natural calamity or any kind of man-made disaster, it could be a fire, it could be an earthquake. So which are the easiest or most secure ways to evacuate students and faculty from, right? So you will appreciate the usage of GIS when you start looking at it from various angles apart from construction as well. So yes, construction, probably you would not need much GIS except for that in planning and in terms of project monitoring and updates using drone. But there are a number of use cases when you start involving the human factor, which is demography, and the factors such as disaster, emergency response, and policing, right? So that is one. This is something I had off the bat. Pawan, if you want to add anything, you may please.
Well, to me, I would say that for management part of it, you have to follow the certain guidelines. From my experiences, best project management is each country has a geospatial guideline. And if that is followed, like India's guideline is something like this. I don't know if I can get that PDF link. So we have a geospatial policy, and if you follow the geospatial guidelines, it will be managed more efficiently. That's my understanding of it. So we in India have, and various countries have their own policies. So if I just open if certain policies are followed and incorporating various methodologies of data, right? That is important. But more so, if a comprehensive regulated policy can help in addressing how certain projects can be managed. Especially, it depends also on the scale of projects. So if it's a smaller project, the situation is a little different. If it's a bigger project, then I think involving various regional parts of the government, state governments in India, then again you have to follow certain geospatial guidelines. So it can only be done well if the guidelines are followed, and each country will do that. So a country like Nepal, if it comes with its own guidelines and it keeps the head mapping agency keeps changing them and keeps implementing them with the day and age of technology, then I think you will be good in understanding how this can be managed efficiently, considering many stakeholders. That's as simple as that. Yeah.
You're right. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I guess Goraknath Pandey got the point. Our next query is from Nista Shrestha. Nista have asked, how can countries with limited GIS infrastructure benefit from advancement in technology for sustainable development goals implementation?
I think Pawan talked about that. That's the power of community mapping, open mapping resources. So that is where your answer lies. And if I'm talking about Nepal, so in fact it also caters to the question from Mr. Pandey. In my recent visit to Nepal, what I came to know that Nepal Development Authority, Kathmandu Development Authority, sorry for the misspell, Kathmandu Regional Development Authority, is it? Yeah. So they carried out a aerial survey of complete Kathmandu Valley way back in 1998. So that is the time when a lot of countries were warming up to the idea of GIS, right? So at least the country of Nepal is at the forefront of GIS, and what I understand from my interactions with the country and the departments there, that in Nepal, lots of departments have been using GIS. So when it comes to hydropower, the country is a powerhouse in terms of hydropower. So dam safety, irrigation, we have been using GIS for long now, right? So what happens when you have a GIS infra, even if it is limited, once you make it available as a service or as an pervasive app, as I talked about, once you enable the citizens, create a simple app for crowdsourcing of information. One quick example could be create an app where people could, whenever they see a pothole on the road or whenever they see garbage laying on the road, they could quickly take a picture along with geotags and highlight it to the government or the municipalities, so that someone can take a positive action and keep the areas pollution free or at least garbage free, right? That could be one use. You can also enable the communities to come together at the times of calamity. So whenever a calamity strikes, we kind of scramble to find resources in terms of how to quickly get someone to nearest hospital, how to call evacuation and rescue team to our place. So if we could have teams of volunteers enabled with GIS or local area maps, community maps available with them, which can also work in offline mode. So wouldn't that be great to have local volunteers come as a first point of response till the time governments send in more professional forces or more trained professionals for rescue? So that is one way of enabling your local community with limited GIS infrastructure. So it's a pretty simple task now, and we just need to put the right policy and the right idea behind it. The technology is available. Nothing is limited anymore. That is what I would want to say.
Pawan sir, would you like to add something?
I think, Pawan, you are on mute.
Yeah, so it's only one word, magic word: open data, open data, open data.
Right.
But having said that, I won't say that open data with open source softwares. You can also blend it with Mr. Sinhar sir's software of proprietary softwares like S3 too, because S3 is very acceptable, right? And also S3 have these kind of S3 ARC 1, 2, 3 surveys where you can do all of this. So you have a lot of ways that you can insert open data. Quickly to answer his question, if I share my screen here, so you just have a look into what organizations are doing within certain communities. So if you go to this website, you go to our work, and you see that even countries of the world, like let's just say Afghanistan, they have certain projects. But now if I come to thematic topics like disaster, climate resilience, public health, so sustainable cities and communities, now that has become the key tag, and you can just see the kind of mapping programs that these small volunteers are doing, right? So that's incredible. I mean, what is going on, and you can check it out. What are the, so now this is something about solid waste management in Mogadishu. Mogadishu is the capital of Somalia. Now Somalia is at a cusp of a lot of political upheaval, and they have resolved it, but still there's a lot of tumult, right? But still they have these kind of mapping hubs which are helping them in this regard. So even Nepal has a lot of this, right? So that is one way of doing it. And I think and you can also integrate with softwares like if you just see, you come here to ArcGIS survey, 1, 2, 3, and I'm actually doing a job of promoting Vibhu Sir's. Yeah, so you can integrate all of these apps, and together that will be a great thing. So you can use these things to collect your data, open data, field data, and do it. Also, if I now use my mobile phone, there are these cool apps called Map Swipe. I think if I can come on my mobile and stop sharing my screen and share my mobile screen a little, and if I do, if I can share my mobile screen, yeah, here I can, yeah, if I share my mobile screen, I will come to an app called Map Swipe. So I'll just click on that app, Map Swipe. Yeah, you can just see the kind of tools that are there. And here you can take in certain mapping missions. Now, this mapping mission is of public health in West Darfur. So here what you have to do is, it's a simple thing. All right. I'll just show you how it works. So here you have to just say whether they're buildings or not. So you can do it. You can happily sleep and you can go to bedtime and yawn and say, but what do you have to do here? Are there any buildings? No. So I swipe it. Are there here any buildings? No. I swipe it. Are there any buildings? No. I swipe it. So you just cannot understand the scale of great applications that has developed. And yeah, and then you come to something like this task, which is what I'm doing now. Here you have to just see whether there's deforestation or not. So here you have to see whether there's change in the forest pattern. So before, after, I can say that there is a change. So just click on this. Here, before, after, there isn't change. There is a change out here. So there's a change in the sea level out here and the forest level out here. So just click on this. And then after you do this, there's a change in the forest level near the beachhead. Just click out here. And what it will do is it will generate tasks, right? So that is one thing. Then you also have certain other tools that I use on my mobile, which you can easily map, like every door. Every door app is amazing, right? If you want to generate a POI, right, you can do that. So I'm here in this area. So if I want to map, let's just say, if I want to map a shopping complex, what I have to do is, I come here, I choose this as a location, and yeah, and I want to say that this is a restaurant, or this is an emergency. So this, I can call this as Kriti Gua, right? Andhra restaurant, and that's it. So you don't know. And if you want to say map a hospital, come here, right? And come here to this. And if you want to map a hospital, you just click on this and just press hospital. And here you have it, or amenity hospital. So you want to map an amenity, I'll just say Yashoda. And it's done. So you have these kind of apps, guys. Huh? And this, I think, will generate, if I'm just stop sharing my screen, I'll go back to my Gmail. Yeah, and I'll just stop sharing my screen. Yeah. Yeah. So this can generate a lot of open data. It's as simple as that. It has gone to this level, guys, right? And if it's gone to this level, you know that data is not a dirt. Data is a lot. There's a very good old saying that what is obese is data. And what is malnourished is its applications. So if we can generate the data if we use the right applications and if we bridge the gap. That is the way I see it. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Absolutely, sir. That was so informative for all of us.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you a lot. It's a privilege. Thank you.
So moving to our last question, Puskar has asked, how can GIS facilitate collaboration between different sectors like infrastructure, health, environment to address interconnected challenges and promote holistic sustainable development? I guess this question is already answered by Pawan Muddu Sir. Sir, anything to add? Both the speaker, Vibhu Sir and Pawan Sir.
Well, I can only add about how we can map, right? But there's a larger framework to this question. And that larger framework is integrating various sectors within the society, right? And that integration, I think I'll leave that question to Vibhu sir, how that integration can be done. But mapping part, I think you can clearly see how it is done. But the integration requires one policy, right, and planning. That is what my understanding is. But then here it is a collaboration with various sectors, and that comes into a high level. So I'll give that the connected challenges or the collaboration within various sectors. That question, I think I'll leave it to Vibhu sir, who can go ahead and answer it further. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Whatever Pawan just said, it's a very this question has a very broad scope, and so will the answer be. But I think I'll go back to what I was talking about GeoBIM. So what has happened in the GIS realm is that we are now not simply talking about GIS. We are talking about an integrated, or I would say, uh, enterprise-wide approach in most of the things. So I was talking about GeoBIM, right? So how Esri implements GeoBIM. So Pawan has been highlighting most of the Esri products so far. I think I'll also talk about a bit of Esri. So GeoBIM is nothing. It's a collaboration. It's a very tight collaboration between Esri and Autodesk. Autodesk, most of you would be knowing, they create a CAD software by the name of AutoCAD. They also have a BIM engine which is called as Revit, right? So most of the infra projects, they would be designed in Autodesk and Revit, right? Once they have been designed, their impact would be assessed by means of GIS on health parameters or on environmental parameters. That is one way of doing it. Now, consider a legacy system. That is one way of doing it. We integrate it with Autodesk. Another way would be we have lots of legacy data. So uh, people have been creating tables and databases, tabulated databases for donkey's years now, 40 years, 50 years. We have like 40, 50 years old Excel files or CSV files coming to us. Like, can you extract the data out of it and take it to GIS? Now that data is very important because it gives you a timeline of all the development activities which have taken place over the last 4 or 5 decades, right? So now S3 would be able to work directly with your Microsoft Office. So once you get all that data into Excel, we have a plugin for Microsoft Excel, right? So you simply select your data in Excel and it will create a map out of it. And then you are able to see a pattern or timeline, how your project or how your particular entity has grown in last 5 decades. Third scenario, uh, let's talk about health. We have vaccination programs, right? In vaccination for kids, infants, which are mandated by WHO. So some 8 or 9 vaccines are given to all the newborns and infants so that they are secure against certain communicable diseases. Now that data has been maintained in most of the countries since the decade of 60s, right? Again, close to 60 or 70-year-old data, and there was no computer system available. But you can train your GIS systems to read unstructured data sets. So wherever, so let's say, if nothing else, you would find the city name or the town name in your vaccination reports. So you can chalk out a trend how vaccination programs panned out across the country, which city it started from, which villages it has covered, in which year, in which decade, and are there any areas which have been left unattended, so that you can focus on those areas. So GIS facilitates collaboration between all these systems. See, GIS in most of the systems, while it is a visual front end, a cartographer's delight, but it is also the information backbone for most of the system. Like for smart cities. In the smart cities, you have data coming in from traffic signals. In the smart cities, you have data coming in from your policing helplines. You have data coming in from utility systems, which electricity supplies areas are off, or which areas are feeling facing issues which citizens or sensors have reported, in which areas we have water breakdown or water pipeline damage, right? So all this information are part of a smart city sensor networks. And all this information ultimately ride on a centralized bus, and the single visualization channel is via GIS only. So GIS has been facilitating this collaboration between different sectors and different, I would say, different amenities or different walks of lives. And that is how, various things like digital twins, smart cities, uh, we have been talking of, uh, transportation changes, various projects are there which actually promote holistic sustainable development. So it's a very broad question, but I think you got the gist what I was trying to say.
Yes, sir.
Only have one point to add. I think one advantage when it comes to geospatial application and technological perspective is using dashboards, right? And and that there's one example that I have here, and you can see. So this is one dashboard that is there, I think, and you can exactly see a lot of dashboards that are there these days. So Chandigarh has a dashboard, all of these, right? So dashboards is a good way. That's what I believe. And where you can visualize, it's not only for health infrastructure visualization like COVID-19, etc. It's also for smart city programs. And various organizations are making it, right? I've talked to a lot of people from Pune where I live. There are organizations coming up with that. So and then you can visualize a lot of things: health amenities, retail complexes, the economic activities, the transportation infrastructure activities, where there's buildings. So to monitor and visualize live data, dashboards are the best. That's what I would say. So more information, I think I'll give you a link of ArcGIS dashboards, and even I think Vibhu sir can give it. And I think so.
No,
I
that's all
think
right.
that is
Go ahead.
yeah.
That's all right.
So
Go ahead. I think one link which I would like to share with the students at Kathmandu University is that of storytelling solutions. I think that is where you should start. So now you can actually, so probably some of you would be having your own personal or a student level subscription of ArcGIS. I'm not sure what kind of arrangements do you have, but this is something, in terms of personal storytelling. So you can start working with the story maps. So Miss Shrestha, she had a question that how can countries with limited GIS infrastructure? So while Nepal is not a country with limited GIS infrastructure, but you can still, students are. We were always looking for ways to get our hands onto some softwares. So this is one way of starting off with it. So you can start creating your story maps on personal story telling solutions by Esri. This is absolutely free of cost. All you need to do is you need to bring up a good story. You should be able to create a basic, digitized map, and you should be able to bring in a couple of photographs or videos to support your story. So start with this, and probably that's where you'll start building upon your GIS empire.
Yeah, so one I have is ArcGIS dashboard. Yeah, but story maps is another great thing, guys. So that is another great product where you can build in a GIS product. But for visualization of all these aspects, which that question, Mr. I think if I'm not mistaken, is that's the question which Mr. Pushkar asked. Then I think dashboards can be a live way of monitoring, because now mappings have become dynamic. It's no longer the good days of papers. They want live data. People are craving for live data. It's like a live cricket match or a live. It keeps updating on and on. So dashboards are the best. Story maps also are giving you good visualization of what you need. Yeah, it's a lot, sir.
Okay, I guess Puskar got the point. In the meantime, I would like to express a deep gratitude to both our speaker for your valuable time and contribution. It's our immense pleasure to have you both with us today. Uh, Now I would like to request the President of GES, Mr. Binod Prasad Bhatta, to have his closing remarks.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Hello. Okay. Thank you, Sudipta. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, all of you, for joining today's webinar. Actually, this program is organized to celebrate the GIS Day, which was dated on November 15th. But due to our festival celebration, we could not go on that day, and we were holding for this day. Uh, So in this session, our keynote speakers, Mr. Vibhu and Mr. Pawan Muddu Sir, has provided valuable information about how GIS is contributing to different aspects of sustainable development goals. So sustainable development goals. So our big thanks goes to these outstanding key speakers for your precious time and sharing your immense sharing your experience with us in this session. And our special thanks goes to Mr. Manas Nagi sir, and similarly Divas Dahal and also Ashok Thagla for connecting these outstanding speakers for this session. So happy GIS week. Keep exploring how ArcGIS can be ArcGIS or QGIS open source software, how they can be useful for attaining the sustainable development goals. So thank you, everyone. Kudos to my team for conducting this event a success. Uh, Over to you, Sudipta. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you, Binod and Dada. Uh, Sir, we have prepared a certificate of appreciation for your invaluable contribution as a small gesture from Geomatics Engineering Society. So let me take a moment to read this out. It goes like Geomatic Engineering Society Certificate of Appreciation. This certificate is proudly presented to Mr. Vibhu as a sincere gratitude for the effort and contribution as the keynote speaker in the webinar on Mapping the Future GIS application in achieving sustainable development goals to the participants, organized by Departmental Club of Geomatics Engineering on November 17, 2023.
Thank you very much for that.
And
I'm honored.
thank you, sir. I also like to read this out. Geomatics Engineering Society Certificate of Appreciation. This certificate is proudly presented to Mr. Pawan Muddu as a sincere gratitude for the effort and contribution as the keynote speaker in the webinar on Mapping the Future GIS application in achieving sustainable development goals to the participants, organized by Departmental Club of Geomatic Engineering on November 17, 2023. With this, I would like to thank you all again. And I also like to announce the end of session. Thank you all. Thank you all for joining, and special thank to Vibhu sir and Pawan sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.